Lub-dub, 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 lub-dub. The sound of the human heartbeat. It beats inside me as I talk to each of you, and inside each of you as you listen to me. Lub-dub, 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 lub-dub. From as early as 6 weeks post-conception, an embryo the size of a blueberry has a heartbeat. And even after we die, the heart continues to beat based on its own electrical activity. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Thousands of songs have been written about the human heartbeat. In fact, some songs are even timed to the rhythm of the human heartbeat. Imagine that feeling of lying on your loved one's chest and listening to their heartbeat, of feeling it against your ear. This beautiful organ, the size of my 2 hands clasped together in front of you, beating 100,000 times a day. But what happens when something goes wrong with the human heartbeat? There are just as many songs written about heartbreak, and you all know that feeling. 1 in 20 of you in this room will already have silent heart disease or will go on to develop heart disease in the future. Think about it for a moment. How many of you have a parent that have had a heart attack or a stent, or a grandparent who needs a pacemaker, who's got a defibrillator? How many of you are invested in the future of your heart health by wearing a wearable that monitors your steps or your sleep or your heart rate? I'm going to show you today that innovation in the cardiovascular space has made the impossible possible and has the potential to transform the lives and the hearts of the 8 billion hearts beating on the planet at the moment. We are always told that smart thinking is thinking outside of the box. Well, what about smart hearts? My key message for you today is that in the era of smart hearts, innovation must occur in the space between the beats. I'm going to talk to you about cardiovascular innovation that has allowed for hearts to live entirely outside of bodies and bodies to go on living without hearts. So let's dive in. Hearts that live outside of bodies. I want you to imagine my young patient. He's 30 years old. He's just come back from his honeymoon, and he and his young bride are planning to start a family. Except he's lying in intensive care, connected to every tube and every medication that's keeping him alive. And don't get me wrong, he is on the brink of death. And me and a team of cardiologists and intensivists and surgeons are working on him around the clock. He has an undiagnosed condition called cardiomyopathy, in which the heart muscle becomes weak and fails to pump well. We decide that the only course of treatment for him is a heart transplant. Now, a heart transplant has been described as the ultimate gift of life. It relies on the generosity of the donor and the donor's families, and it can prolong a recipient's life by almost 20 years. As a cardiologist responsible for this, we do our utmost to look after that heart and make sure it goes into a recipient. A heart comes up for our young man. The only problem is it's on the West Coast, and here we are on the East Coast. Now, in the past, we would take the heart out of a donor and we would put it in a bucket of ice and we would rush it, lights and sirens across the city. But the heart could only survive outside of the body for a brief period of time. Now, here we are. We have a heart on the other side of the country. What are we going to do? Well, maybe instead of thinking outside of the box, we should put a heart inside the box. Now, let me tell you about the heart in the box innovation that was pioneered at St Vincent's Hospital and the Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute, my centre in Australia. It essentially involves taking a heart out of a donor and putting it in a special box that builds on innovation from the heart-lung bypass machine. Essentially, the heart can pump while it's in the box, and we can transport it across countries. We can monitor it overnight, so a heart that may not look like it could be a potential donor heart, we can watch get better. We can take blood tests to look at its lactic acid level to see how it's going. We can even take pictures of its heart arteries, perform an angiogram while it's on the box. So we use this heart-in-a-box technology that's now established worldwide, and we give our young donor a heart that means that he can continue to live. Now, what does this heart-in-a-box technology, a heart beating outside of your body, look like? Now, if you're squeamish, I ask you to close your eyes for the next 30 seconds while I show you. I can tell you that even standing in the intensive care, each time we retrieve a heart in a box, I am still filled with awe. Now, how do we augment a heart? So while it's in a box, how do we make it stronger? I want to tell you about an innovation that's incredibly close to my heart, being Australian. Spiders. Now, something that would normally stop you, stop your heart dead in its tracks, actually has the potential to protect hearts. So when you have heart muscle damage, and that can occur because you have a heart attack or because we take a heart out of a donor, you get a buildup of lactic acid. That's much the same as when you go to the gym and you exercise your muscles and they get sore. But when you get a critical level of lactic acid in the heart, it sends a suicide signal to heart cells, and this causes them to irreversibly die. Now, a protein from the funnel web spider, one of Australia's most poisonous creatures, and of course in a country of poisonous, deadly creatures, the poison can be used in a medication that blocks this suicide signal and can protect the heart. Now, what about after a heart attack? A heart attack being a leading killer of people worldwide. Well, after a heart attack, we have the same buildup of lactic acid. And if you have a patient that's in a rural area, for example, the Australian outback, 10 hours from the nearest doctor, you could administer this medication via an ambulance officer in an ambulance. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're not going to walk around with a jar of spiders. It's going to be more professional than that. But this medication can be administered on the spot to protect heart muscle cells. So I've told you about hearts that live outside of bodies. Now let's talk about bodies that can live entirely without hearts. The early scientists established that the heart is a pump. It's got 4 chambers, it's got valves that connect the chambers, and essentially it's got a pretty simple plumbing system of 3 heart arteries that allow blood to pump. It's also got an electrical circuit, and we know that if the heart arteries become blocked, we can put in a stent, and if the electrical circuit, there's a problem, we can jumpstart it with a defibrillator. Despite this, 18 million people worldwide die from cardiovascular disease. Let's think about that for a minute. That's like the entire state of New York or the entire country of the Netherlands. Gone. So let's think about our young patient. What if he never makes it onto the heart transplant wait list? What if a heart never comes up for him? What if we had a heart on the shelf, ready to go? So technology that we already have is called a left ventricular assist device, which is essentially a metal device that sits in the left ventricle, which is the big pumping chamber of the heart. Now, when I have a new medical student or nurse that's very green and straight out of school, I say to them, go and feel the pulse of the patient in bed 18 with the left ventricular assist device. And they go, and they look white because the patient has no pulse. And they go to listen to the chest, they put their stethoscope on, and all they can hear is the machine whirring of this LVAD machine. And these people can live for a long period of time with this pump. In fact, if they die, we have to switch off the pump, otherwise it'll continue going. But the technology gets better. Let me tell you about a story of innovation that rivals that of the Wright brothers and flight. I want you to picture a young toddler. He's sitting with his dad, a plumber, by the river. And the two of them are working out how pipes and water flows through pipes. That young toddler grows up to become a biomedical engineer. When his dad suffers from heart disease, the two of them vow that together they're going to build a total artificial heart. They go every weekend to the local hardware store and they build and they tinker and they build. When his dad ultimately dies of heart disease, that young innovator vows that he will build a total artificial heart. 2 weeks ago, a man lived 100 days with an entirely titanium heart. He then went on to get a transplant that will mean another 20 years of life. And that titanium heart was built by that innovator, Daniel Timms. Though his dad's life was not saved by this, it will go on to save many, many lives in the future. What does a titanium heart look like? Tiny, with a 4-hour battery life, sustaining life. So here we are in 2025. We have smart hearts, but maybe we need to reconnect to our own smarts. We have wearables that mean that we can track our every move. We have artificial intelligence that means that some technology is better than me at diagnosing a heart condition on a heart ultrasound. We have huge amounts of information, but we have to design our data sets with empathy and with the diversity that reflects us. And we need to reconnect to our own smarts. Today, I can, from my office, turn on my dishwasher at home. If I'm ready to leave the garage, I can cool my car down. We have smart watches and smart scales and smart homes. The Internet of Things has put everything at our fingertips. I've shown you that in the era of cardiovascular innovation, hearts can live entirely outside of bodies, and bodies can go on living without hearts. And I hope you can see my key message, which is that innovation in the era of smart hearts must continue in the space between the beats. Thank you.